Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of The Business Therapist. I'm your co-host, Chris Angel, here with your host, Arnell Tanyag.
Yes.
What's up, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's an exciting time for another episode.
I love these episodes, man. It's
Yep.
good stuff. And I think today we're diving into something that is highly underrated in people's business. I think people don't even know they're missing this.
Yes.
Because they're, let me say this way, they're full of it. They're full of this.
Mm-hmm.
But having too much of this makes them have none of this.
That's correct. That's
very
correct.
abstract. So we're talking about perspective. The most underrated thing I think people need in their business is perspective. And I think a lot of people don't have perspective. So let's unpack this, Arnell.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked to a lot of business owners, and over time, they start out with a great vision. They have somewhat of perspective. I'm going to do really well. I want to grow. Then give it a couple months to a couple years, they get beat up. The vision of what it looked like not there. The perspective has changed. I think the perspective has changed because they had great attention, they had energy and drive, and it's never a work ethic issue. It's like, I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing, or I'm not, or am I on the right path? And then here's the thing: if they got beat up, or they hired business help, or they're like, oh my God, I hired somebody, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Now I'm gun shy, this and that, and then their perspective. Of what to choose or make a decision. Everything now is just foggy. So, and I find out it's interesting. I was telling this one client of mine, if it's a male, it's funny. I have some business owners, when they lose perspective, they just go sell more. I know if I just keep selling, it's going to fix itself. I'm
right.
Like,
yeah.
Well, sometimes it will. Then I have the other people who goes, well, I'm not going to sell. I'm just going to, some people, I'm just putting my head down in the sand and just work. I'm just going to keep doing my business and service it, and I won't sell. And they go or they just shut down. Yeah. So, and I'm like, what happened here? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I don't know what to do.
Right. Or maybe they go look for more, maybe they go look for answers, and they consume all kinds of content, and they've collected so many answers, and that doesn't even help. That's sort of like when I said they have so much perspective that they have no perspective. Like they've collected everybody else's perspective and they can't find their own. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's almost like they lost their voice.
Yeah.
They had a voice in the business, and they were like, yeah, I'm excited. I want to do all this thing. And we were talking this earlier about, it's like they get in the pool. They're like, all right, I'm going to start taking swimming lessons. And they go, okay, I'm going to swim. They're like, oh my God, am I in the deep end? Oh yeah, I am. And now, I'm treading water. How do I get out? How do I get it? How to get out? How do I do better? And it's interesting. Yeah. I even went to that myself. It's like, you go in there, you have this idea, but then I think what's happened, your perspective changes because your business changed, and then you're not sure what that foundation is, or who do you go to confirm or validate or support your decision.
Right. Yeah, big time. I think that's a huge missing piece for a lot of businesses is it's hard to get perspective. How do I say this? The best perspective is going to come from something that you feel you own. When it's your perspective,
that's correct.
It's your point of view.
That's correct.
You have the ability to own it.
That's correct.
And so then you see it through, and you can go down the path. But if you never own it, and you're always just borrowing somebody else's point of view or perspective, then you never orient yourself somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. And I think what's happened is the owners I work with, when they first start out in business, they either have healthy perspective and everything falls in place and do really well. But as soon as they get beat up, or things not working, or they get a divorce, or they're unhappy in their personal life, or they can't hire people, this and that, and then their perspective is I'm just busy. Or I'm busy. I don't think I'm making enough money, or I'm just working long hours, and I'm just doing the best I can. I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't know. I'm just juggling. I'm juggling. And it's interesting. And you can tell that they're doing their best they can. They don't know what to do.
Yeah. That's perspective.
Yep.
When you don't have perspective, you don't know what to do. You're like, I don't know. I'm trying all sorts of and it's not even that you're not trying stuff, right? You can be doing a lot of stuff, and it still doesn't produce a result because you don't have perspective for what to do.
You're right, because I was I was sitting down there, and because I do a lot of my markets business to business, and I was telling somebody, I said, recently I did this. I actually kind of sat sat down and wrote down the type of clients I wanted to work with, right? I gained a perspective of here's who I want to serve. So I created this referral worksheet. I said my tier 1 client are business owners, 500,000 revenue, who want to grow. My second tier, independent contractors, business development people want to make 6-figure. And my third tier is doing training, training, get paid to do training. And then then I have different services, but then I'm like, okay, that's my reality. I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to go after it. But it was interesting. Once I did that, it gave me a perspective of, okay, I'm going not to serve these people because my business won't do well and I don't do well there. I'm going to raise my prices and I'm going to get the training. But here's the interesting thing. I can make decisions because I have perspective on who can I work with, who I can serve. Right. And then, then I've made decisions like, somebody say, hey, can you work with me? I was like, well, let me listen to it. I said, I won't be the good fit. Now, before I would like, hey, I just take anybody,
Sure.
Because I didn't have any perspective. I just take anybody I want to take. But then I realized that I'm not really helping them or me. I mean, they'll get to great success, but the business is not getting fed financially or even emotionally, spiritually. So I just said, here's who I'm looking for. I'm going to go deep. I'm going to figure out the relationships, work the process. You helped me a little bit explaining, how, ask me tough questions. And then I was looking at my referral process through Mike or Mayor. I'm like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to go at. So now I have this healthy perspective solely based on here's what I believe I can serve. Here's what I believe I'm going to say no. I'm going to make some adjustments,
Yeah.
But I got some of a belief of, okay, here's what I'm going to go at. And then because I think what's happening, when you have great perspective, you know what to say no to.
Right.
I have a lot of owners who can't tell me they can't say no. They don't know how to say no.
Because they don't have perspective.
Yep, they don't have perspective.
I mean, that's what it's so crazy because it's like you could almost trace all of the places you're stuck in life. You listening to this can be traced back to perspective. You're stuck in relationships because you don't have perspective. You're stuck in your career, your business because you don't have perspective. You're stuck in your body because you don't have perspective. Like ultimately, it's going to come back to when you have perspective. To your point, you know what decisions to make because you're oriented to. There's no fog. You know whether to go left or right.
That's correct.
Because you have perspective. Without perspective, you don't know whether to go left or right. You don't know if you should eat paleo or you should eat vegan or you don't know because you don't have perspective. And so it just creates a fog of all the different options and that creates paralysis, I think.
Yeah. And it's interesting. A lot of the owners who I work with, they're either so overwhelmed that they just work.
Right.
They're maintaining. So a lot of times we take a step back and say, okay, why do you do this stuff? I said, well, I need to make the money to take care of my family. I said, so where do you see your business in a year from now? What do you have to do differently? And I'm like, well, I can't think like that right now. I'm just got up every day. I go to work, and like I had one client of mine, she called me up last week. She was in this book club with me. She goes, Arnell, I feel like, she called me up. She said, I feel like I'm failing. I'm struggling. I'm not meeting deadline. And I took a step back. I said, look, you're okay. I said, because 2 years ago, you were miserable. You hired staff. You've hired people for your busy season. And then you literally you took a little mini vacation. You just know, I said, knowing you just felt like you're not, following through. I said, no, I get it. We all, I admire it. You admit it. You just hate doing that. I said, but look at where have you come last 2 years? She's like, oh yeah, I got some staff. It's not going to be perfect, but you're getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
You're getting ahead of it. You're seeing your trends of your business. You're getting ahead of it. She goes, yeah, I am getting ahead of it. You actually took a little vacation. She goes, yeah. And I said, we're good. We're as owners, we're so good at beating ourselves up when we don't do what we need to do, but we don't celebrate our wins. And our perspective is always to the negative, not to the positive. And it's not always to where we want to be. It's always like, oh God, I feel like I'm burdened or, overworked. And
Right.
And I told her, I said, you're doing fine. She goes, really? I said, yeah, because here's the thing is you actually came to the book club. You actually hired staff. You're actually learning stuff. We meet for dinner. We talk about business. You take 2 or 3 things and talk it out. And she's like, yeah, I've been telling a lot of people about you because you have no agenda. And I was like, because at the end of the day, I just want you to be successful. You're right. You have to get a perspective of what that looks like because you lost it.
Yeah.
You lost what it looks like. It's your business has now become a job that is dead end for you.
Yeah.
you know?
Right, right. Because there's no perspective. That's so good. When you were talking about that, made me think of like a race, like when you're swimming.
Yep.
There's some story about somebody swimming across some ocean,
Yeah.
and but when you can see the finish line,
Yes.
you re-engage. And
Yes.
whatever your finish line is, listening to this could be
Yeah.
whatever it is. But without the finish line, without perspective,
Yes.
you lose steam, you lose motivation,
Yes.
you check out.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of businesses checking out from whatever's next for them, right? They may be crushing it if you look at their P&L or their revenue,
Yeah.
but they feel stuck and they don't know what's next or how to expand or how to grow. And I think that just ultimately comes back to perspective. So walk me through a little bit of like how you do that, because you are one of the greats at being able to create perspective for people. How do you do that?
I think when you look at perspective, I think it goes back to, and I always tell people at the beginning, when you started your business, you had a reason, and you have a passion for it. But what was the outcome? Do you wanted to make more money? You wanted to make more time?
Yeah.
What was the thing you wanted the business to do to provide for you? And they first started, they literally had an idea, they wrote it down. But once they got in going, they got beat up a couple of times, weren't successful. They couldn't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked them, so let's take it. Let's go back to what you remember. Like, I can't remember. And then it's not even relevant to today for them. So I guess they said, well, what's important to you? So what do you want to do in the next 3 to 6 months? I mean, I said, well, and here's the scary part, Chris, they can't even think a year.
Mm.
There's like, I don't even know. I don't want to go that far on now. I just can't go that far. I was like, why? Because I don't know if I'm going to get there, because I've tried it. I've wrote my yearly goals. I said, well, okay, let's do this. Okay. If you could, over the next 90 days, if you had the time and money, let's start small. What would you do? What would you start small at? Well, I'd take a trip maybe for the weekend, Williamsburg. And okay, what do we have to do to bring in clients and money? And, what do we have to do in that 90 days to get you there, so that you now have perspective that you can actually do this, and you're actually seeing your wins. You can only control what you control. You can, what do we have to do to help you? What skill, what process, what do you have to see yourself doing and winning at, so that, and it's interesting, like all the clients I used to work with, they would come up with some struggle, and then they get this new healthy perspective, and they would achieve this milestone, right? Because I have several clients over years, they achieved this milestone and that they broke through, and then everything else after that was easy, because they knew it was just, focus on that perspective, building toward the future, and keep building, put support group. And they would hit these milestones, and they would be top in their field as long as they had continual support. But it was interesting I think it was just getting them to just figure out what's that small win, and reward yourself. What's that small wins? Yeah. Reward yourself. And then once they saw that happening, then things would come. And then I always tell them, when you're doing that, you always want to have some type of support, because it's always good when it's working. Yeah. But if you don't pay attention to what distracts you, or you lose focus, you got to have somebody keeping you focused on that healthy perspective toward the future. Yeah.
That's the thing that I feel like and by the way, that's what you're really good at, is like you ask good questions, and there's never a time when a business doesn't need good questions asked.
That's correct.
Right? Like when you're in a good season or a bad season, it doesn't matter. All of it requires a sounding board or questions. And I think that's one of the things you're so gifted at, is asking questions. And then the thing that makes that different, I think, than like going out and reading a book, is that the book can only reflect back to you whatever the author had. But when they're working with somebody like you, right? Like you're actually specifically, them, you're asking them questions about them.
That's correct.
And so the answers don't come from a book. The answers come out of
them,
the client. Like, and that's back to the point of like, you have to own the perspective. You can't borrow somebody else's perspective. Like you have to own the perspective to stick it out.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, I think, they first started their entrepreneurial journey, and they had healthy perspective and making it successful and making the time and money, but then multiple distractions, multiple failures. Right. And the reason they started, they lost it. And now now it's become, okay, I've done this business. I don't want to go back, but what do I do? Yeah. And then what kind of perspective I need to do to see it actually turn around and being successful. And then I think that a lot of times what happens if they've been beat up before, they're very cautious and they're not as open. And then the other thing too is just helping them look at their blind spots and go, hey, you're acting like I have a client of mine. I have to meet with him. I said, man, I said you're repeating the same cycle. The only difference is you have somebody working for you who loves you, and I was going to tell him you're living out of fear, man. I mean, like he's like, what do you mean? That's like just. I could just tell because you're just operating from, he'll clean up my messes and stuff. And I was like, that's not, and I told the guy, the number 2 person, you thank God he ain't got somebody I hired him because he's doing a lot of this extra work and I want to give him bonus or something. He's like, I don't know. I was like, so, well, eventually 2 things going to happen. He may stay there, but he's not going to stay there because he's excited about the opportunity. He's going to stay there because it feels like he's obligated to the opportunity.
Right.
How family businesses, people go in there just because they're family. Right. They're not because they're valued family as a business person. They're just their family. So it's interesting how perspective changes in business. I think it's almost like you have to do is you have to have somebody challenge that so that you're always moving forward, not kind of sitting back on wondering, why am I like I am now and stuck,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because like when I talk to you, it's interesting when I talk to you a couple of times, you always challenge my perspective. Like, hey, never thought about that.
Right. Right. That's, I know. I love it. That's the gift of like working with somebody else is like, again, you can't get it for yourself. It's very hard to get yourself your own perspective.
Yes. And I'm going to give a plug for you. I mean, we've been doing this for how long?
Oh my gosh. We're on episode 7. It's like 17 or 18 episode
17, 18. And each time, and it's interesting. My wife, she'll say, hey, so you're watching your business therapist show? Honey, every time I interview with Chris, I get perspective. I mean, I get some perspective. Right. I get reminded of my work, my important work, but it helps me kind of think it out and go, oh, I'm on the right track. Oh, because you're right. If you don't, I think perspective works. And you said it when you're sharing it with somebody who understands you and your business, and then you feel comfortable. Okay, I'm on the right track. They're going to challenge me. They're going to go, hey, I'm going to go do this thing, and then you feel like you can conquer everything.
Right.
Well, we don't have anybody talking about your perspective of what needs to change or what to look at. You kind of feel like you're just all alone, struggling or trying to figure it out. And then after a while, you will struggle if you have nobody to talk it through.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So good. Well, that's why I love what you do as a business therapist unofficially, but in business coaching, consulting, that's a lot of what happens. And
that's correct.
Some of you listening to this have been thinking about having a business coach and haven't pulled the trigger. And some of you have had business coaches, pulled the trigger, and it wasn't what you wanted, or you outgrew the conversation. Either way, what I know is if you're currently without some type of feedback mechanism like a coach, you need to have perspective. It's the very thing, the lack of perspective is the thing that's withholding you from where you're trying to get. So
yes.
Arnell, with that said, I know that you'll often do what, like a free complimentary, like.
Yes, I'll do a strategy session. For about a half an hour just to talk to them. It's interesting. Just talking, like I do strategic coaching for Michael, and I talked to this one lady. Yeah. In the real estate for 18. We're just talking about her whole business for like a half an hour. She's like, this is really refreshing to talk to somebody who can just sit there and just listen and ask questions.
Yeah. And to your credit, more than that, like you're so perceptive. So like you listen well, you hold space for them to share, but you're so perceptive. So as people are sharing, you're like, your wheels are turning about where they're stuck, why are they stuck?
Yes.
So how do people reach out to you if they want to take their business to the next level? They're tired of not having perspective and living in a sea of fog and they want to have clarity. How do they connect with you?
Yeah, they just go to my website, which is www.tanyag.net, or they can just call me on my office line, 757-752-8169. Just reach out to me. And I always tell people, I just listen. I just want to listen to see where they want to go, where they're at, where they're stuck, and see if it's the right fit, and because I think today you got to have somebody kind of give you that perspective that's different. You probably know, but you just need somebody to kind of clarify and verify. Yeah. And help you kind of look toward ahead and look at what you got now and what you have to work through,
Yeah. So good. All right, gang, we'll go to tanyag.net, connect with Arnell there. And Arnell, thanks for a great episode, man. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.